budget, honestly, and that meant raising taxes, and my Republican colleagues aren't ready to do that yet.
So we have to, we're putting our money where our mouth is.
That's right.
Yeah. So now let's turn to a different topic, pensions. This program is a production of the Minnesota State Retiree Council, AFL-CIO. So we have a keen interest in all kinds of pension funds. I happen to come with a background of teaching, so I'm looking particularly at the Teacher Retirement Association. So I'll take host prerogative and ask you a question about that. What's happening with the Duluth and the St. Paul teacher pension funds, and how does that affect teachers in the Teacher Retirement Association?
Well, let's begin by making sure, from my perspective, it is our commitment to teachers and other public employees that the pensions that we've committed to are funded and sustainable going forward. And we took a look at the Duluth Teachers Fund and the St. Paul Teachers Fund and paid some attention to those because they've been having some difficulty. So we are adding a little additional money to those funds. The employees are kicking a little more money. The employers are kicking in a little more money to make sure that they're solvent going forward. So we're keeping a commitment to the pensioners and to those who are paying in so that the pension is intact going forward. And I think that's our obligation. And we are also doing some study to understand the benefits of or risks of a consolidation of the Duluth Teachers Fund and the St. Paul Teachers Fund with the TRA, with the Teacher Retirement Account, to see if bringing those together will provide more stability and sustainability going forward. And we'll take a look at that study and the results of that in 2014, and that'll inform our decisions going forward.
Yeah, it's a very, very critical issue, and
it's critical because we've made a commitment,
yeah,
and we can't break that commitment to people who have worked to earn those pensions.
Yeah, and I contributed to my pension fund, and my employer contributed to my pension fund, and the pension fund itself has earnings that it's making, and the actual percentage that of the pensions paid out that comes from state coffers is very, very little.
Right.
Very, very little.
Right, and I think those of us in work understand that we make a contribution to a pension fund or to a 401k as a part of our earning the salary that we earn. So we take some of that salary home now, and some of it's a contribution to either a pension fund or a 401k or some retirement account. So that's earnings that people have, worked for, and we need to make sure our commitment to that is clear and strong.
Yeah. Another subject we touched on and talked around, that is subject of taxes.
Yeah.
And I think of Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. saying, taxes are the price that we pay for civilized society. Yeah. And many taxes were talked about, including expansion of the liquor tax, extending the sales tax to clothing, gas tax increase, and other things. What type of tax bill was passed and eventually signed into law? And I know it had several different components.
Well, the legislature is a place of a lot of ideas and a lot of discussion. And, there are 201 legislators, and many of them have ideas about how we should achieve our goal of balancing the budget, right? So we did hear, a variety of ideas, and in the end, it's our job to make a decision about that. So we wanted to make sure we balanced Minnesota's budget honestly and for the future. And the budget that we balances in the next 2 years and then through the next 4 years. So we were, really committed to a stable budget going forward. We raised in the end an income tax on Minnesota's highest earners, those earning, in the top 2% of earning, right? So making more than $250,000 a year or above. We'll see an increase in their income tax. We closed some corporate tax loopholes to bring some money back into Minnesota's budget, and we also raised a cigarette tax. And one of the reasons why I think that's important, and you mentioned my background in nursing, I'm a registered nurse. Our healthcare costs in Minnesota are growing and growing quickly, and that's in part because we're aging, but it's also because we have, a lot of chronic disease in and across the country. This is not limited to Minnesota. And some of that is the result of the way we choose to live. And chronic conditions like heart disease and lung disease are in part related to tobacco use. And so it makes sense to me that we would use a measure like a tobacco tax increase to pay for the costs that we're seeing in our healthcare system. Those two things fit together. And so that's why we chose that increase as well. So a little income tax, corporate tax loopholes we closed, and then the tobacco tax and a little business tax made up the tax bill this session.
So 98% of people in Minnesota then are not affected by the income tax changes.
That's correct. It's a small sliver of people.
Yeah.
I think Minnesotans support that. They've indicated that support. It's something that Governor Dayton felt very strongly
You
about.
campaigned on that.
He did indeed campaign on that, and it's something that our members also felt strongly about, that everybody should be chipping in. And when we looked at the way Minnesotans were paying their taxes by percent of income, those earning at the very top were paying a little less by percent of their income than those in the middle and lower end of the income scale. And we wanted to make sure that that was balanced and fair. And that's why we took the tack we took.
So promise made, promise kept.
I think that's one way to describe this past session. We listened carefully to Minnesotans. We made some commitments that we would pay back our schools and balance the budget for real, invest in education, and we did that.
Yeah. What's possible regarding property taxes?
Minnesotans, as a result of the deficit budgeting that we've been doing, have continued to see their property taxes go up, and they don't like that very much.
Right.
And so we did take strong steps forward in a couple of fronts to make sure that we are taking pressure off the property tax. So we reinstituted a market homestead credit to make sure that people are able to reduce their property tax burden in that way. And we also added new and additional money to the renter's credit so that people who don't own a home but are renting are able to get some relief there as well. So we paid special attention to property taxes to make sure that we put a stop to the increases, and we're going to see a decrease as a result.
Okay, in our discussion now today, we've been talking about hard, basic issues.
Mm-hmm.
Bread and butter. Yeah, I couldn't think of it. Yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. Unions. We haven't talked about social issues.
Okay.
But, as union people, we prefer to focus on jobs, and the rights of workers.
Correct.
Now, the Marriage Equality Act was passed, and AFL-CIO has long believed that a worker is a worker is a worker, period. What effect will the marriage equality have for Minnesota workers, the marriage equality law?
Well, I think, first and foremost, I think this legislature, and I like to describe this past legislature as a workhorse and not a show horse. We were very focused on getting work done for Minnesotans. And jobs are really important. We know that a good job is the key to a strong and independent life, the life of your choosing, and that's important in a democracy. But we also understand that there are a segment of Minnesotans who have lived outside of the benefit of marriage, and civil marriage is a means to benefits and work. And those who didn't have access to marriage were limited in the benefits of work. For instance, my husband and my kids get their health care coverage through me and through my employment. And that's because Joe and I are married. And if we weren't married, he wouldn't have access to that, nor would my kids necessarily have access to the health care benefit that I have through work. I think by recognizing the freedom to marry, by recognizing that every Minnesotan should have access to the same benefits in work, and by making it possible for those two people who love each other to marry, they will also then, as a result of that, have access to benefits that come through marriage in the workplace. And that way, employers are able to treat everybody fairly.
Okay, a worker is a worker is a worker.
A worker is a worker is a worker.
Okay. Let's talk about some job issues. What resources will be going to Rochester, Minnesota, or out to Bloomington that will have regional or statewide importance?
You know, it is really good to see Minnesota going back to work again. And we continue to see an economy that's growing. And as I mentioned earlier, the construction trades have really, really taken it. It's been difficult for them through the economic downturn. And as the economy is continuing to grow, we're seeing more opportunity. And so in Rochester, there's been an investment, and they're going to be expanding at the Mayo and in the community of Rochester to support that. We're going to see new building at the Mall of America. We're going to see some new growth at 3M and in that area in Maplewood. And I think if we're able to do a bonding bill in this next session, we're going to continue to see opportunities to invest in our infrastructure and resulting jobs. And I think Minnesotans understand that a good job is the key to a growing economy. And our work this session on things like Destination Mayo are going to help contribute to that growing economy.
Also in the economy, child care providers. What opportunity do they have now under law that was just passed?
Yeah, we passed a piece of legislation that will allow child care workers and personal care assistants the right to organize and conduct an election for union representation. The basic right that lots of workers in Minnesota have, the right to organize and seek union representation, has been extended to those two groups of workers as a result of the law.
So as a result, they have a chance to vote, and they can vote yes, or they can
It's up to them
vote
now.
no.
All we did was give them the right to vote,
Yeah,
and
so
they can choose to organize or not.
Okay. And one other important issue, the ban the box part of the session. What is ban the box?
In the most simple terms, it means that someone who has committed a crime and served their time can seek a job and not have that necessarily disqualify them from work. So we're making sure that employers can't, as a matter of course, ask a question and disqualify somebody from employment because of a past record.
So it gives them a chance to get beyond the paper resume
Correct.
or form and get a chance to talk to a prospective employer.
The employer still has every opportunity to hire who they choose, and an employer can choose not to hire somebody based on their past behavior. But we want to make sure that people who have served their time have a shot, an equal shot at getting in the door.
Very good.
Yep.
So with all these accomplishments, I can really only think of one major thing that was left undone. The Minnesota House passed a minimum wage bill.
We sure did.
And the Senate passed a minimum wage bill, and nothing happened.
It's not done yet.
It's not done yet. So what are the chances of the differences between the House and Senate getting resolved?
We passed a strong minimum wage bill in the House because we know it contributes to a growing middle class, and we know a strong middle class is key to our economic future. We believe that our minimum wage should certainly be higher than the federal level, and it's not in Minnesota, which is sort of surprising for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But if people are going to have a job, they need to be able to earn a living to support their family. And we believe raising the minimum wage accomplishes that. And I think we'll get it done in this next session. Unfortunately, it's in conference committee right now. I wish we could have gotten it done at the end, but we ran out of time. So it's top of the pile for the 2014 session. I think we'll get her done.
Okay. So I hope that's bill number 1.
Well, it's already there.
Okay,
it's already there. But you know
Okay.
what? I think Minnesotans, strongly support the increase of the minimum wage. But if you agree and you're listening, you should make sure and call your legislator.
Okay. And Erin Murphy, our award-winning director, Roger Carlson, and his crack crew, Ed Rapp, Larry Chadwick, Dick Nielsen, Bill Moore, are telling me that our time is up.
Boy, that goes fast, Dan.
Yes. Thanks so much for your service to the state of Minnesota, and thanks to your colleagues in the Minnesota Legislature for everything that they did in 2013. And as you go door to door listening to people, you can expect some very positive feedback along with good ideas for 2014. Thanks to the Minnesota State Retiree Council, AFL-CIO, for making Voices of Experience possible for over 10 years.